There's something that I left out from the previous video when we were talking about hair, and that is right here. This is called an erector pili muscle. And when your hair stands up, say like hair stands up on your forearm or something, that's the muscle that's causing it. So that muscle is also responsible for goosebumps or goose pimples. But again, the erector pili muscle, pulling on that hair follicle. Now let's finish this up with the functions of the integumentary system. When it comes to your skin, it's really there for protection. It's from chemical, physical, and mechanical. It's a barrier for all three of those. Your skin plays a big role in body temperature regulation. And that, of course, is accomplished by increasing sweat gland secretions to cool the body. But it also plays a big role with dilation and constricting of your dermal blood vessels. Your skin also is a reservoir for blood. We'll get to that more when we get into that chapter. But when it comes to cooling, if we want to cool our skin off, believe it or not, we dilate our blood vessels at the skin, and that releases that heat from our body. If we want to warm our body, we constrict down those dermal blood vessels. That way we can preserve the temperature in our core. So that's how we warm ourselves. Okay, so protection, body temperature regulation, cutaneous sensation. We have all these exoreceptors that are there for sense of touch and pain. Other functions of the skin are metabolic functions. So we see the synthesis of vitamin D in the dermal blood vessels. Oh, here's my note saying the blood reservoir. I thought that was in the blood chapter, but it's here. Your skin stores up to 5% of the body's blood volume. So that's a fair amount. My last function is excretion. So we have large amounts of nitrogen waste that's eliminated from our body through sweat. Now, ahead here, there we go. Let's talk about skin cancer. Now, most skin cancers are benign, or skin tumors, they're benign, and they don't metastasize. However, there are some that really do. There are some risk factors when it comes to non-melanoma skin cancers. There's a P53 gene that comes into play, but I won't hold you for that. But anyway, newly developed skin lotions can actually help fix damaged DNA in our skin. So we're getting better and better at that. Now, my pictures here are the three types of skin cancers. My first one, picture A here on the side of this man's nose. This is a basal cell carcinoma. Remember the basal layer? That's the deep layer where we have most of the mitosis taking place in our skin. So this one is the least malignant, and it's the most common skin cancer. Because those cells proliferating, a cancer in this region tends to invade the dermis and the hypodermis. So the nice thing is this is a slow-growing carcinoma, and it doesn't often metastasize, although it can. It can be cured surgically, and that's what happens in about 99% of the cases. Okay, B. Here's B up here. This is a squamous cell carcinoma. So remember that most of our cells are those keratinocytes, and they're squamous cells. So this is arising in the keratinocytes, specifically of the stratum spinosum. If you remember your layers growing up or coming up, you have basale on the bottom, spinosum is second, then granulosum, and then corneum. So this is the second layer. This type arises mostly, you got to hear where this arises. Most of the time, it's on the scalp, on the ears, and the lower lip. And so if you're wondering why, which hopefully you are at this point, it's because of sunlight, because that's where the sun hits, especially that lower lip and the ears. So anyway, this carcinoma will grow rapidly, and it will metastasize if you don't get it removed. Now, the prognosis is good if it's treated by radiation therapy or if it's removed surgically. Things work out pretty well for people with squamous cell carcinomas. My last one down here, C, that's a melanoma, cancer of melanocytes. So you're really deep then, right? You saw where the melanocytes were. This is the most dangerous type of skin cancer because it's highly metastatic. It likes to divide and go elsewhere. And it tends to be resistant to some of our chemotherapies. So that makes it a little scary. Now, when it comes to melanomas, we have some rules to define a melanoma. We have the ABCD rule. So A, is our patch asymmetrical? And this one clearly is. So the two sides of this pigmented regions, they don't match each other. B, is the border, is it irregular? Does it show indentions? This one clearly shows indentions. So that's that jagged edge. C is color, the pigmented area. Now, this is important to hear. Melanomas can be black, brown, tan, and here's the crazy one. Sometimes they can be red or blue. We got to make a deal. If you have something blue growing on your skin, you have to see a doctor for that. That's just a good piece of advice. So C is color, so ABC. D is diameter. If the diameter of this thing is larger than 6 millimeters, that's about the size of a pencil eraser, you've got to get it checked for a melanoma. Now, melanomas are treated by a wide surgical incision. So when I say wide, I mean take off a lot of this, okay? And then after that is followed by immunotherapy. Now, the chance of survival, I'm sorry to say, is poor if this lesion gets thick. So if you find these things growing deep, and if they get over 4 millimeters, remember 6 millimeters about the width of a pencil eraser. If these things get over 4 millimeters thick, you're invading some tissues that you don't want them to invade. So that's when melanomas become dangerous. Okay, let's leave our skin cancers and go into burns. When it comes to burns, we have first, second, third, and believe it or not, there's actually a 4th degree burn. So a 1st degree burn is only the epidermis that's damaged. So you end up with localized redness, swelling, and pain. So most of your sunburns are just 1st degree burns. Pretty straightforward. Your 2nd degree burns include the epidermis and the upper regions of the dermis. A good sign or symptom for this would be the appearance of blisters. So anytime you blister from a burn, you've just left the 1st degree and you've gone into a 2nd degree burn. When it comes to a 3rd degree burn, the entire thickness of the skin is damaged. Burn area then appears gray, white, or cherry red, or black. There's no initial edema or pain because the nerve endings are destroyed. So you've gone through the skin. Now, I don't have a picture for this, thankfully, but a 4th degree burn actually goes through the skin and it starts to char the underlying tissues. So the muscles, the bones, things like that get scarred. You can see my lady up here. She is here for the rules of 9. So when it comes to the severity of burns, we consider a burn critical if over 25% of the body has 2nd degree burns on it. So 25%, it's easy to figure out that each leg is worth 9% of your body covering. So if both your legs and say an arm have 2nd degree burns, you're in a critical situation. So that's the whole idea of this. Your head is 4.5%. Each arm is 4.5% of your body covering. So that's the purpose of this whole thing, okay? Anterior and posterior lower limbs is 36%. So we're talking about regions here. So 9 on the front, 9 on the back, 9 on the front, 9 on the back. 9 times 4 is 36. So that's 2nd degree burns. Now, if over 10% of the body has 3rd degree burns, it's critical. Here's the one that catches me though. 3rd degree burns on the face, hands, or feet are critical, immediately critical. Now, when it comes to burns, the problem that we run into is you start losing this skin, you lose the protection, and so the assault from biological comes into play. So it's very easy to catch something then. The other thing is you have tremendous water loss, liquid loss from your body. Remember I said before that the skin is what keeps you waterproof? Well, believe it or not, it also keeps the water in you. So that's why that's very important. Okay, let's move to the last topic. These are the developmental aspects, some things that we need to know. I've never gone over the different derms of your body, but you have an ectoderm, a mesoderm, and an endoderm when your cells first start compiling. Your endoderm is going to that's going to form your digestive viscera. So they call it the gut region. Your mesoderm typically is muscle, and then your dermis and your hypodermis come from that. Your ectoderm, ecto is on the outside. Your ectoderm develops into your epidermis. Okay, so now as you age, skin, as a lot of you know, being most of you are teenagers that watch this, skin and hair become oilier, and then acne starts to appear. And this is all due to hormones and hormonal control. So skin shows the effects of cumulative environmental assault. Sometime around age 30, you start to notice your skin changing. And at that point, you start seeing more scaling or dermatitis. It becomes more common for you. Now, as you age, the epidermal replacement of cells really slows. And the other thing is your skin becomes much thinner. Sometime take a look at your grandparents' hands and just look at how thin the skin is on the back of your hands. That's a great place to look. Okay. The other thing to do is pinch the back of your hand and pull up the skin and let it go. And for you as a teenager, it immediately goes down. Here I am, my young 50s. Mine, it takes a second to go down. Your grandparents will even take longer, okay? And as you get older, your skin becomes more dry and itchy. Your subcutaneous fat layer starts to diminish, and that leads to more of an intolerance for cold. So you might hear, your grandparents talk about how it's always, they're always cold. Well, that's because their skin's changing. You see a decrease in your elasticity and the loss of that subcutaneous tissue. That's what's going to lead to wrinkles, okay? And the other one is we see a decreased number of melanocytes, so that's why our skin changes, and even our hair starts to turn silver. And then also we see a decrease in Langerhans cells. I don't know if you remember those in my very first video, but those are the ones that are there to protect you. So anytime you start to lose your Langerhans cells, you're increasing your risk of skin cancer. So these are just some developmental pieces to the integumentary system. And I believe that's where we should end this chapter.